Hello and welcome to another edition of Storytelling on Orchard Street. I'm your host, Pete Salamita. We're at the podcast studios of P&T Knitwear Bookstore, 180 Orchard Street. Come down, check it out. It's a great bookstore. They have a cafe in the back with all kinds of goodies you can have. They have events here. So, come one day and buy a book. But today's guest is David Lawton. David's new chapbook, The Graveyard of Memory, is now available from Bottlecap Press. There we go. His recent work has appeared in Other Rooms Press, The Closed Eye Open and Maintenance 19, and Pixie Dust. The debut album from Hydrogen Junkbox, his lo-fi DIY anti-folk band CD, with poets Amy Herman and Eric Alter, is available on most major streaming services. Welcome, David.
Hi, thank you for asking me to be here.
Yeah. Well, maybe just get the mic a little closer to yourself.
Okay.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay.
So, I have a copy of your book. I appreciate you sending it to me. It's always a help to, get to delve into a writer's newest work, or any work that is. So we're going to talk about that and the music group that you got and other things that interest you. Just give me a little bit of background. From what I gather, you grew up in the Boston area, or?
Yes, I grew up in a suburb called Woburn, about 20 minutes northwest of Boston, typical working class suburb. Come from a big Boston Irish Catholic family.
Okay. Italian American.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, and watching a lot of TV and listening to rock and roll music.
Right.
And going to public school.
Yep. That sounds familiar. Parents, what were they like? You said working class. Like, what did your parents do?
Well, actually, my dad was a trial lawyer.
Oh, okay.
He had, like his father was before him.
Huh.
I went to Boston College and Boston College Law. He was what's called a triple eagle, because you go to BC High, BC, and BC Law.
Okay.
Which at the time he was growing up was very difficult to do.
Right.
To pull that off. And my mom was seven kids in my family. She was a stay-home.
I have 7 kids.
All right, nice.
7-kid family also.
What number were you?
Number 6.
Oh, I was number 4, smack dab in the middle.
Right.
And
There must have been a lot of fighting going on, huh?
You better believe it.
Right.
But that's how you get ready for the world, is
Right.
for smacking each other upside the head.
Where did your love of poetry come from?
Well,
were your parents into the arts, or?
I wouldn't say so. No, they were
too busy working.
Right. or taking care of everything around the house.
Right.
But I think as a child, I had an appreciation of poetry.
Uh-huh.
I had an uncle who was my godfather, who was interested in local politics, and so he went to public speaking classes. So he used to come over sometimes and go in, start doing Gunga Din or the cremation of Sam McGee. He'd have those things, those poems memorized.
Wow.
And so in some ways, although, I was fascinated by, being taught about Poe and say Whitman's Civil War poems, there was the performative aspect of my uncle, and also poetry parody. Like, we grew up with Nipsey Russell, Henry Gibson on Laugh-In, and Bullwinkle's
Are we about the same age
Poetry
then?
Corner.
Sounds like
I
we
think
might be about the same age.
I think so.
Yeah.
We won't get into specific numbers,
right.
No. But and I have this moth-eaten copy from Mad Magazine, put out a soft cover of the guy that used to do all the poetry parodies, which I don't know if I'll be able to come up with his name, but the book was called Mad for Better or Verse. And so, in some ways, when I got into high school and I was in the band, the band organizations, I started to learn a little bit about Kerouac, what he did with Steve Allen and other musicians and stuff like Slim.
I never saw that. Steve Allen.
When Steve Allen had his late night show,
right.
and he had on Kerouac when Kerouac had become, a cause celeb,
right.
and Kerouac, he would do a lot of times it was some of the Mexico City blues poems.
Okay.
Like for instance, as somebody from Massachusetts,
which you mentioned in your book.
Yeah,
reference.
He would put together a sequence of the Mexico City blues poems, and there's a famous one. This is coming from Boston about the ham and eggs. Goofing at the table. That's how it starts.
Okay.
You just don't know. What don't I know? How good these ham and eggs are. If you had any idea whatsoever how good these ham and eggs are, you would stop talking and dig in. It goes on.
You just did a little Boston accent.
Right. So does Kerouac.
Yeah, right. And Steve Allen played piano to it, or
piano? Yeah. He played piano,
okay.
and he was a very good piano
Well,
player.
I remember that. I know. Yeah. I can't remember that show. I don't know if I saw that much of it. But
so I'm sure that now it's because sometime in, I don't know if it was the 90s or something like that, they came back out with it's like a Kerouac album that kind of like corralled a lot of those performances.
Yeah, I bet you it's on YouTube or something.
Yeah, even on YouTube. Yeah.
Have you looked for it?
So that's very memorable.
Right.
And all those people like Slim Gaillard, Babs Gonzalez.
What was the name of his Slim and Slam?
Slim and Slam, and later,
now we're talking like 40s, 30s.
And into
that stuff was very poetic. You're right. I didn't think of it that way.
Exactly,
yeah.
and playful
like
with the language.
In a hip way.
And that's always been sort of my feeling is that there's bleeding into these different areas.
Sure. So you mentioned being in a band. So was music first and kind of you? Or?
Well, I was from the time that I first could talk and walk. I was an actor. I in my own mind.
Right,
I went around and would copy people's voices and things like that.
I used to do impersonations when I was a kid too.
Yes, yeah.
I did an impersonation of you mentioned Laughing. Artie Johnson did that old man. You want a Walnutto?
Tyrone. Yes.
Me and my cousins and siblings, we used to put on what do you call it? Talent show or whatever for my aunts and uncles.
Right. Oh yeah.
And I did impersonations.
So yeah, I was a little performer, and so also like at that age, you feel like you can do everything. So I thought they were all related. And it's like, now I'm going to recite a poem that I just made.
We separated, but it is kind of all connected, isn't it? Mostly.
Now, yes, and being, I feel like, especially being an Irish person, a lot of any of the cultures that still have some tribe to them.
Right.
The bardic tradition was, you did a poem, you sang a song, you told a joke, a story, that those were all, the people wanted all of those.
Sure.
So the bard was prepared to do any of that. So
did you do theater?
Yes. Oh, yeah. That was my background, and I got a theater degree at Boston University, the theater program at Boston University.
So you were serious about it.
And I'm still serious.
Okay,
about
I didn't know that. See, I don't really know you that well. I mean, I've only seen you a couple of.
But you have to pay. You have to pay the bills. You know, I've never been successful. To make a living at it.
Right.
I have to admit, but. I've always kept doing it.
Right. Well, for me, it was the drums, but I never made a living out of it.
Yeah.
I had jobs.
Yeah. So that was the first thing. But yeah, I was too shy to really do it for the longest time when I was still a kid.
Right.
And so then when I started playing in the band, I think it empowered me to do the creative things that I wanted to do. I used to play sax. I mean, I'm very badly out of practice, but I actually play sax. I practiced and practiced to do one little line on one of the songs on this album that I was just determined to stay, because you're embouchure.
Yeah, you have to work on it.
You have to work on it.
Well, I was a drummer. It's the same thing. People ask me, why don't you want to play anymore? It's like, I could sit down and hammer out a beat, but am I playing the way I want to play? Because it's a physical thing too, and you have to make a connection from your brain to your physicalness too.
Right.
And it takes working on it.
Yeah, exactly. And I would like to get myself back in practice on that again too.
Right. Are you currently doing anything in any plays or like?
Not right now. I'll tell you right now, in case anyone's listening, I really am interested in doing on-camera work and developing a reel to, because I'm getting close to retirement age in my job.
From what? What's your job?
I work at a college. That's all. I was on staff at a college.
Okay. Right.
About that, we won't use up the time. With that
sure.
Yet,
right.
So there was a company that a friend of mine got me involved with that that I did a bunch of plays with in recent years, and has kind of been inactive since the pandemic, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, the pandemic just hurt a lot of the arts for a couple of years.
Yeah. Oh, very, very much so. But so anyway, I would really, it's always been on my bucket list to do some film work eventually. So, do some student films, do some independent films. Anybody that's looking for a weird, almost old man
well, I mean, if you're doing a film, you would want different ages. So I'm sure there's
you need a character. You need a character man.
Yeah,
and so no, very much. And so okay, to get back to sort of the poetry. So like theater. I never took poetry writing classes or anything like that.
Right.
So I mean, theater feeds into my practice, and I'm always it's always performative in one way or the other.
Right. Well, I think there's a big connection to I guess it depends what the theater is and what the play is, but a good play is poetry and motion, storytelling. And
I can tell you that my freshman year at the theater program, I went to the voice and speech class. Half of the year was spent getting up and reading poems.
Right.
That's the first time I was exposed to William Carlos Williams and Hilda Doolittle, and I remember a Patti Smith poem that I probably worked on this Patti Smith poem before I heard a Patti Smith pop record.
That's it.
Very possible.
How'd you come by her then?
The speech teacher had had these sheaths of things, and I don't exactly know how she was hip to that,
right.
But it was one of the things she did at the time she came out at the poetry in what's it called in the village, the festival. Ann Waldman used to run it. What's it called?
I'm not sure.
Oh, all right.
I'm new to the poetry scene. Even
okay.
Yeah.
Folks out there,
I was
you know what I'm talking about.
I was a rock and roll drummer for most of my adult life.
That's cool too.
Yeah, I didn't know I could write poetry, or at least the kind of poetry I write.
Yeah, I when I was first in New York, I was a background singer for a crazy band. There was a band from Detroit that came here called originally Mr. Unique and the Leisure Class, and later on was just called Leisure Class.
Right.
And some of the members of that band are some of my best friends since that time. And they used to have headquarters in the Chelsea Hotel. And when we were staying there, we got to know
a big rock and roll hotel.
Yeah, big rock and roll, but also Herbert Huncke, the godfather of the beat. We used to hang out with, and he came and we played behind him at a gig while he read a story.
Must have been fun.
Corso sometimes was around. There's a great poet from San Francisco called Marty Matz, very, very performative guy. And there's a piece in my chap that's sort of modeled, is kind of a tribute to his
which one?
his character. Well, it's called Like Marty Matz, man.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
You want to hear me read it?
Yeah, yeah.
Because this is,
and then we'll talk about the book a little bit.
because this is like gives you what it's like to be sitting around the Chelsea Hotel in the 80s.
I'm just gonna turn the light while you're picking that up.
Smoking a lot of pot. And so under his influence, I read this one. It's called Like Marty Matz, man. Intergalactic emphatic battalions dance a funky hornpipe to the death's head rattle. Transcendent animatronic distilleries brew a heady draft of doom's last hope. Cosmic equestrians on crescent moon unicorns fire lithium rockets towards the grateful Manhattan. Roll me a joint like a pontoon boat. Take me for a ride on Chinese junk. Fuck them if they can't take a joke.
That's cool. So, is that how does that connect with Marty? Is it
well, that
kind
is
of like in his style?
Yes,
or, okay.
exactly. That was in his style. He was, as I said, he had a very deep and very performative voice. A lot of times he would perform with sitar playing behind him, or real modern jazz, or whatever you would call it, and just also a lot of drug content in it,
right?
And a lot of fuck you, kind of attitude,
right?
He was a one of the best readers, pure readers I ever saw. But he was one of these guys that always got in trouble. He was a teenager in San Francisco when everything started to hit, and ended up in jail, so that he couldn't. He was booked to read with those guys, with Kerouac and Gary Snyder and those guys, and so there was always bad luck that prevented him from getting the same opportunities at that little period where people were ready to publish.
That's too bad for him.
Beat poetry,
right?
But he never stopped going, and he was the most confident performer of poetry I ever saw.
Wow, that says a lot. Yeah.
Look, he has a collection that at this point is probably a little hard to find, but let's see if off the top of my head I can remember that. Maybe we'll circle back to that. Because, but look, Marty Matz, look it up.
Okay, we'll look that up. So let's talk about the Graveyard of Memory, which you just read from.
Yes, sir.
Are these all poems from like different parts of your life, from growing up in Massachusetts or near Boston?
Yes.
There was a couple. There was one from one or two from New Orleans, and then one about a rockabilly bar.
Yes, it tries to be a little trip. All the poems are like written within the last 10 years.
Okay.
But they start with some Massachusetts, and also coastal New Hampshire, the North Shore of Massachusetts.
Did you travel a lot back then?
That's someplace that we went. My family went in the summertime.
I was going to ask you about that.
Always gone in the summertime. That the coast of New Hampshire is little tiny.
So that's where that poem about the abandoned amusement park is from.
Actually, that is in Massachusetts, right before you cross over. Yeah, Dogtown.
Right.
Dogtown. You want to hear that one?
Yeah, why not?
Oh, okay. All right. So
I also like I also like Warburn odor.
Oh yeah, I suppose because that's where I was born. Maybe I'll start with that. I don't mean to confuse the audience, but this is sort of one of the things my hometown is well known for, unfortunately. And it really helps to read this one in the Massachusetts dialect.
I think there's probably a lot of pockets of the country where people grew up like this and could relate to it.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah. Any place that's kind of near industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What industry was it, by the way? Oh, General Foods plant. It says it right there. Go ahead, read.
The Woburn Odor. They called it the Woburn Odor. If you were stuck in traffic on the east side of town, it would get all up inside your nostrils with a stink like rotten brontosaur eggs. It could have been from the General Foods plant, where they rendered down whatever marrow and fascia it takes to make your jello wiggle. Or the cleaning solvents and heavy metals the factories disposed into ponds and lagoons. But when a construction company broke ground on the new industrial park, unearthing a mass grave of animal hides from old leather tanneries, the proud, rocky New England soil vomited up a corrosive, neglectful stench which moved with the sluggish breeze all through the oppressive summer months of ruined cookouts and Little League games until the state sealed the crypt with red clay and looked the other way. Everybody hold your nose until it's over.
I got to tell you, I enjoyed the poem, but now that I hear you say read it like that, it's even better.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Next time, I'm going to read it again on my own and see if I can copy that.
And see if you think of yourself as stuck on Route 93 in that industrial part of Woburn, and you can't escape it.
All right, I bet. I know.
So to contrast that, up another 15, 20 minutes north, when you're not quite in New Hampshire yet, there's an old colonial sort of ghost town that's famous. It's a famous place now to go walking around.
Huh.
It's
still a ghost town.
Exactly. It has the footprints of all these old, like from the late 17th century.
Really?
It was place. And there was early in the 20th century, there was a painter who went up there and painted the different areas of Dogtown. And Marsden Hartsley, I think his name was. You can look it up.
You mean he went to an abandoned...
Yeah, he would go there and set up his easel and paint, and they're very interesting paintings about these. Because there's also like the trees and everything. It's kind of wild.
Did those paint? When was the last time you were there? And when was the last time you were there?
I've actually never been there.
Oh.
I read about it, and I was like, oh, my God, why did I never know about this? This isn't right on the coast. It's right off of the coast because this is where...
So you passed by going up to your family resort.
It's just, as I read about it, I was kind of drawn into it. So I really want to go there.
I'm surprised you didn't go after reading the poem.
But perhaps my imagining is even better. This is called The Endurance of Dogtown. Hidden inland from the Salt Lick shore, a wilderness of pirates and witches crowding the wives of sailors who did not come home to the tight-packed cold clay rolled in clover, wet-nose imprint domicile. This is a forgotten history for the unaware, cataloging the flea-bit cellar holes with the vagabond ghosts of juicy bones, picking out the ancient scent of abandonment, where the howling absence fills the spaces between every outcrop of scrub brush and thorny pine to show its faith in the vastness, time. How in the stuffed shirts of the Gravity Institute tried to whitewash the idea of healthy slobber by having unemployed stonecutters carve inspirational sayings on Dogtown's boulders. Every native canine raised their leg at the one that said, "Get a job," and made their steaming mark on it. For instinct tells them to protect the bitch that whelped them.
That's awesome. I didn't realize that you actually have never been there after reading that.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah.
But when the imagination crawls, activates in your head.
Sure.
I tried to, I was like, because basically the footprints of all the that's what's left. It's so long ago. Right. The footprints of all the buildings, this, when I mentioned in the third stanza about the stone cutters, I mean, that happened like in the early part of the 20th century. I think the town people said, well, we've got to do all that space that we're not doing anything. We've got to leave some, it's like the Christian work ethic. We're going to hire some people to go up there and carve these, you should live a good life and all this stuff to, where all these dogs are wandering around.
Huh.
It sort of had
Hence
this,
Dogtown.
Well, back in the original, when there were people living there, these widows and these wives, they were waiting to see if their husbands came home. They'd have dogs to protect them because there were still pirates, as is mentioned, and that's why they don't live they live just off the shore,
right? Because
there was still so much activity on the part of pirates. And so, I mean, it's a place that, in a way, is a sort of graveyard.
Right.
That these people, said, well, but we still need to tell people to do something, make yourself busy,
something else.
And, like, leave people alone.
Right.
So check it out, folks. Dogtown. I think around this time in New England, it's probably really beautiful to go there and walk around.
Yeah. So tell me about home. Is that referencing a place that
about that the poem called Home?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So that opens up to answer it honestly. I have to tell you that I had sort of a vision quest years ago through knowing my friend that there's something called iboga or ibogaine is the medical. It's sort of the most powerful psychedelic on the planet, and back in what is now Gabon. This is something that was taken by the Pygmies and some other tribes, and it took them through a deep vision quest that made them better hunters, and it's part of a religion back there. But it knocks out the need for it helps break the addiction to drugs, to heroin, drinking. It's a very powerful thing. And a great friend of mine, Dimitri Mujanis, got himself off of a very bad habit and began to help other junkies.
So something you do as a therapy. It's not something you do for recreational purposes.
Absolutely would not be done for It's very powerful, and you need to be guided through it by a medicine man or a shaman.
I was going to say shaman.
So this saved him. He was trying to save people, but he realized that he needed to find more about how they administer it, to administer it properly. And of course, it's illegal in this country. Right. But it's something that's also being very deeply studied because of the powerful effects of it. So I bring that all up because when I used to be part of the ceremonies with my friend, just because I was so happy that he had freed himself from his addiction. He was helping other people, and they wanted to try to recreate this kind of tribal with beating drums and dancing around, showing support.
And where would this be done?
For the people? Well, at people's apartments that were able to. It was an apartment that was a was able to do it without upsetting, neighbors or something like that. And this was
Because I had vision of like, fire pit and
no, I mean,
being outside with trees and,
right. No, that would be ideal.
Right.
But this was to try to help people in an urban setting and where it's not practical to, I had some of these experiences supporting these trips,
Right.
and then
playing a sax, or you just play drums, or
you would shake the shaker,
Right.
Dance around. You had to kind of lose your inhibitions and try to vocalize. Because of my background, I became the keeper of the time and
Right.
help keep the white people on beat, and vocalize, try to bring the experience, even what you imagine the experience would be in Gabon when they were going through this. So anyway, there were some things happened to me in my life that I was experiencing a lot of grief. And so I decided, because I knew that some people who experienced depression, et cetera, had used this. And so I had I went through a very powerful experience, went on for a couple of days. And after that, even after the trip is over, you're still it's still moving through you, physically moving through you. And I was back in my apartment and sitting in a chair, and all of a sudden I just started to get pulled. I kind of felt like I followed through the apartment, and I found this little an old keyhole. It was like old hardware in the closet in my bedroom. And you could kind of see that it went inside somewhere that you didn't. And suddenly I was aware that this stream of energy was moving through this keyhole, through the room, I don't know, taking me by the nose and pulling me to come see. And I know that when I went to bed there, I also had, I felt like there were I don't know, that I was aware that possibly there was some kind of spectral or spiritual,
Right.
like that I was more aware that there was past beings or whatever that was going on there. Did it really happen, or I don't think it matters.
Right.
When it
It did in your.
It was something very powerful, right. And my apartment is a very old apartment, and I felt like I was experiencing this history there that I couldn't know.
Right.
So that's the.
Well, that's interesting because I read this, and it's fun to do this because I read your book and I found the poems interesting, but now when I hear you talk about them, it's a whole different thing. I thought this was some kind of recollection of a memory from childhood or something, or like being in a place or an old, or maybe a home you grew up in, or
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe part of what it was loaded with was all the homes I've ever had. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but they were all, moving through. And I know that this building has a lot of like areas that are sealed, they've sealed off because they remodeled the building and everything. So I just had this.
How old of a building is it?
Well, they say sometimes when we get some paperwork, it says like the 40s. But I think the 40s is when they had divided it up and changed it.
So it's probably older.
I think it goes back, closer to the beginning of the 20th century.
Right.
Do you want to try and read this poem?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do we have time to do this?
We have. We're only about a little past halfway.
Okay, this is exciting because I wasn't planning on reading.
Yeah, right. But it's good because after that long descriptive, it's a great description of how you came about it.
So it's called
Sometimes the story of how you write a poem is almost as good as the poem itself.
Yeah, and I guess that, sometimes you don't. When people say, "What's the poem about?" Sometimes a lot of times I don't want to say. I want to say, "What's it about to you?"
Right.
Because maybe that's better, or maybe it helps you more. What you think what, but also maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it means something that I didn't think of it to mean.
Right.
You
Right.
know.
Well, because part of writing poetry is not always being specific to a story. It's
Right.
emotion or feelings, or you don't even know where the words come from, right?
Sometimes it's rhythm. There's
Yeah.
It's.
Well, your poetry definitely has a lot of rhythm to it and musicality.
I'm very interested in that.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's one of the that is particularly the tone, I think, of this chap. So
Yeah.
so this poem called Home. Something drew me, pitched and rolled me, blissful barefoot flapjack step dance, toward those shadows in the corner, crooked closet framework cutout, slapdash, piecework, caretake saw marks, folds green bolt knot, shut in call bell, bent back hardware, wind escaping, rug tack, run step, flashback passway, primal timber, slipstream skip trace, ectoplasmic gritty wood grain, cabbage vapor, greasy imprint, art song swing band, silent chatter, echolalic layered vibrance, sheetrock air shaft, time spelunking, tiny expanse, soul residue, spirit essence, intermingling, home.
Yeah. So so when did you make the transition? Did you make the transition from Massachusetts to New York City direct, or were there stopovers, or like?
No, no stopovers other than I went to college in Boston.
Right.
So I was in Boston for a while, and and did some summer theater elsewhere. But I came to New York in the summer of 1984.
Okay.
Is when I moved to here and have managed to stay.
What brought you here?
Well, the interest in the theater, I
Right.
was coming to become a famous actor.
Okay, got it. Right.
So I came here and started trying to do auditions and also do little acting showcases and things like that. I started to get involved in some things like the leisure class, and very soon that the band I was talking about. Or was that before we were on the podcast? So maybe I should.
Yeah, I think it was before. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I mentioned my friend Dimitri Mujanis before, who has gotten involved, saved himself with Iboga, and now helps drug addicts and as a counselor more so than what we were doing there for a while back 20 years ago. But he came here with his punk band, which was called Mr. Unique and the Leisure Class.
Good name.
And after they made the transition from New York, they became more than a punk band. It was sort of like a punk band mixed with Captain Beefheart.
Oh, great. Right.
And they added horns and all this stuff.
Right.
Again, very performative, very theater of the absurd kind of shows. You actually can see some of their live performances through YouTube, and also you can buy a CD
cool.
of their stuff out there. I think it's called leisureclass.net is there, so I'll give them a shout out because
Sure. Check them out.
I started doing that, and I was like, maybe I'll be a rock star, and then I'll get acting jobs, and they'll think,
Right.
oh, well, he's not even an actor.
Right.
Famous last words, but
Well, a lot of actors want to be musicians, and a lot of musicians want to be actors.
absolutely, yeah. So, so that's I've done a lot, for a little while, things in the biz,
Right.
but. Then there's a little while that I fell in love and got married and things like that, and And when my marriage broke up is like for a lot of people, who were just about reaching a midlife, that was what kind of exploded. I had I'd written love poems for girlfriends and things like that for years, but all of a sudden, I needed to write a lot about what had happened, kind of the shock and it
To
occurred.
process losing a relationship.
Right. And that there was a lot of some of the grievous things that led me to do the Ibogaine treatment were also happening right before my marriage broke up. So it was
How long were you married?
I was married 9 years.
Oh, that's a long time.
And had been together for 12 years.
Okay,
living together
it's
for
a long
12
time.
years.
It's a
So
tough
yeah,
break,
and it happened very suddenly. So it was something that I just tried to gut out, and that's why suddenly, and it's like fate. Shortly Dimitri came back to New York, and he was doing, and a new man, and was doing this, and I started to help him just for this seems interesting,
Right.
But that helped me deal with that. Suddenly, I was like, well, maybe if I'll feel better if I do this.
Right.
And so, and that also opened up, the poetry. It helped me move on from writing about, which a lot of times there's midlife poets that write about a divorce, and that's all they ever write about.
Right.
Which gets kind of sad after a while.
Of course. Well, that's kind of how I got into poetry. I was going through something, personal issues, and I wrote to get out of it. But then I realized I like the process of writing, and I can tell other people's stories and maybe have a little bit of myself in it. And I didn't. And yeah, it's bad when you hear a poet talk too much "woe is me" kind of thing.
Yes, exactly.
Because you can put what's bothering you in a poem, but it doesn't have to be in people's face either. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Like you can get it in there, the feeling in there, but without knocking somebody over the head, but make them,
Right. And without even having known, when I first came out and started to read in the city, I was like, oh, I don't want to be this guy that he's the guy, he's the sad,
Right.
the sad guy. And that made me kind of go back and search my notebooks and find some of the writing I had done before, because when I was at the Chelsea and I was around those poets, sometimes
You must have
I
been
would go
writing.
back and say, hey, I'm gonna write,
Right.
So there was stuff that I could go back and make a little and try to make a little bit better and take it back to the open mic.
So what's it like to take something that you wrote? So we're talking how many years? Like you say, you go back to look at some of your notes from Chelsea here.
So that was. Well, I mean, that was before I was married, so
Right.
then that would have been like 12 years,
or more. Right.
12
Yeah.
years in some cases. So, yeah.
And a fresh eye, and having.
Well, definitely you have the experience sometimes where you look and you're like, oh, why did I? You
Right.
see something where you go, oh, that's wrong. That wasn't the right word to pick. Or
Right.
I mean, sometimes you look back and you say, I spelled that word wrong, and
Right.
I haven't noticed that for 12
Well,
years.
yeah, there's a lot of that. Sure.
So
My first book has a lot of mistakes in it that I missed.
well, that you should have your editor is to blame. For
Well,
that.
yeah, I suppose. I have a new book coming out, hopefully by sometime late October.
All right, and you will.
And
have
it's been through a couple three eyes, so hopefully there aren't as many mistakes. But I as a musician who also adds elements of music in my poetry, I definitely like some of the, like you mentioned, Earl Garner. You mentioned D Boom, which is not something I thought I would see in a poem. The Minutemen was a fun band. So did you just visit New Orleans? Were you down there for a while?
The poem that you are referencing there, because which I think is from when Great Weather for Media, the press that I was involved with for a long time.
I'm glad you mentioned that. We should talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we went down to New Orleans because that year the anthology that we did featured an interview and a poem from the legendary John Sinclair, the great music journalist and the manager of the MC5 and et cetera, who I got to know, again, through my friend Dimitri, gotta give him credit. And John used to spend part of the year down in his daughter lived in New Orleans, and he loved New Orleans, and he was a DJ. He had, for a long time, had the #1 DJ show in New Orleans. It was scholarly about blues and jazz music. So he was going to be down. We kind of coordinated so that we could go down there and do an event for our anthology, and including John.
Wow.
And it ended up being an incredible experience.
I was going to say, it sounds like a blast. That's a great reason to go to New Orleans.
As a matter of fact, I wrote a blog about the whole trip, which is still up on the Great Weather for Media.
I got to check it out.
If you wanted to try because it's a great story, and I probably can't.
For the listeners or the viewers, mention the full. What's the full website?
It's greatweatherformedia.com.
Okay.
And then you have to choose the, it has a fancier name, but where the blog is, it's the name for the blog. And then, of course, I wrote this, 8 or 10 years ago, so you have to but I'm sure you can search New Orleans and find it, so that little poem has to do with
when you went down there.
Yeah, one day we went to a bar, famous. It is the oldest bar in New Orleans, and
I don't know if I remember that. I went years ago.
Shall I read that one?
Yeah,
so
sure.
So that people know what we're talking about?
Yep.
From my new chapbook called The Graveyard of Memory from Bottlecap Press.
So this is after Katrina. This
is a couple of years after Katrina. You are correct, sir.
Which just it was the 20th anniversary a couple weeks ago.
Oh yeah. All right. So it was more than a couple of years after that. I would say, because I think it was 10 years ago or 12 years ago, something like that.
Right.
But anyway, Eau de Lafitte. Stopping for a drink in Lafitte's blacksmith shop, purportedly the oldest bar in New Orleans, we are overwhelmed by an industrial cleaning stench. Allegedly once a smithy owned by Jean Lafitte's brother, as well as one of the most haunted places in the Big Easy, so it is no surprise that it would require a goo that smells like mint julep candies, detergent concentrate, and rue to cover up the drunken puke of tourists and ghosts, and the ghosts of horses, I suppose. But it drove us out into the street with our cold beverages, where a front line promptly formed for us to fall into. So go on and let Lafitte stink, if we can let the good times roll.
That's perfect. Made me feel like I was in New Orleans.
And being able to fall into a front line,
right?
I don't know if there's a better feeling in the world. It was real magic, real fun.
When you say front line, you mean second line?
Yeah. Is that what I said?
Second line.
Second line. Excuse me.
Maybe after we talk a little more, I usually read one, but I just recently wrote a poem that mentions second line.
All right. Bring it on.
I'll read it now. Usually that's my one poem for the day. It's called Dig. The second line vanished as the hearse pulled away. Umbrellas twirled themselves to heaven, casting shadows on eerily quiet and empty streets the day you departed. I have lots of time now, but what does it matter? The drumbeat faded and the wailing soul dissipated. Black wrought iron railings too hot to touch, air so thick you can cut it with a knife. Balcony overlooking ghosts dancing on cobblestone, laid down secrets now forgotten. It's a different time now. You have to search for the key out there waiting to come back. Steamboat traverses the river, making waves that sadly ripple away. The city that birthed notes from the Congo to the muddy banks of every river town going north. It's still there, just like blood so deep in the soil, you have to know where to dig to find it. I don't know where this came from, but it's one of those poems I wrote it biking around the the loop around Prospect Park.
But that's the heart of New Orleans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so you just mentioned great weather for media, but we talked about it before. We haven't talked about it here. Can you just tell the listeners about that experience?
Okay,
and
sure.
what that was, because they might not. Besides the anthology.
Great weather for media. I had the great opportunity to join Great Weather for Media's editing team, which Great Weather was started by a couple of my best friends in the poetry game, Jane Ormerod and Thomas Fucalaro, and the late Brent Lyon, who is instrumental not only in inspiring that small press, but also the musical work that I ended up doing, because he used to run a series called Hydrogen Junk Box, that mixing music and poetry.
Which at the end of this episode, we're going to play a cut from.
No, that's Hydrogen Junk
Oh,
Box.
I'm getting it mixed up. Sorry.
So we picked the name. We picked a variation. We picked a variation of that name, Hydrogen Junk Box, which of course is which is also an Allen Ginsberg quote that used to be Brent Lyon's series.
Oh, okay.
And so he was a great inspiration. So they started a small press that used to put out an anthology of poetry and short prose yearly, as well as some single poet collections, and we went at that for 12 years.
Okay.
And it was I never had any interest or thought I had any interest in being an editor. I'm not trained in poetry, et cetera. And
it's not an easy job.
It ended up being one of the best experiences, and has helped my writing, and particularly like my submitting skills to place in journals and other anthologies.
Well, sometimes you fall into something that you wouldn't think you would do, and then you wind up, it makes a big difference in your creative life.
Exactly.
And also it was a reading series.
Yeah, and so, yes, we had a weekly reading series where we had the opportunity to feature writers.
But if you told me the story that you had started your own reading series first.
Okay, all right, that goes back.
Why not tell that part of the story?
Okay, so
this is history.
As a preamble, and again, I had never, when I first started reading around in New York, one of my first observations is I never want to be a host. I never want to have to run that. I said, that's a harder job than anyone realizes.
No, it's not easy.
But through a series of happenstances, I was offered the chance 15 years ago or so there used to be a little tea lounge down here on East 4th Street called the Jujomukti Tea Lounge, the beautiful little tea lounge space, a very, very intimate space. So,
what did it look like? Like, what was the vibe?
It had a beautiful inside, like polished wood and
like
nice
old style. Or?
It had a look. I mean, she spent. Julie, I'm sure she spent a lot of money setting up this place, and I think that she had she anticipated being able to do some things there that the landlord screwed her on. We won't get into those but that made it harder. I was telling you that when I was offered it, I was like, wow, this would be a great place to do a poetry series, but in this location, it's never going to last. So I said, I'm going to agree to it, so I can have some readings here for a little while, and then it will be over.
Right.
And it stayed open. I ran that weekly series for maybe a little over 2 years, and then I was feeling so burnt out.
Well, that's a lot of work to do.
It's very the booking and the contacts and the sharing on social
having to
media.
be someplace every week too.
It adds up. So then I had been featured in some of Great Weather's books, and so I went to them and I said, "What do you think about collaborating with me so you have a place to feature your writers and also members of the community to keep a good thing going?" going, and so they did come in on me, so that kind of saved me. And it went on for another 6 months or so, and then and then, even though the tea lounge was going to close, we decided that it was a good partnership, and,
Right.
and so we ended up moving over to the park side, and that series went for 12 years.
I got there at the tail end. George Wallace invited me to read there. What I saw of it, I really liked it. It's a shame that it had its day.
It had, well, I mean, the park side is still there.
No, I meant the reading series.
Yeah.
It was the times I was there. I really
and it's a
enjoyed it.
great place to
it's a good
do a
room.
reading. It's a great place to see bands,
Yeah,
and
it's a great room.
And we lost some of the venues during COVID, so it's important to support these places
Right.
like the Parkside and Otto's that offer
Right.
these. I should say Otto's Shrunken Head, to give
Right.
you the correct name for the venue that offer us these opportunities. So so Great Weather, we closed the press at the beginning of this year, I believe it was. But we just felt like there was closure. Some of the closure was forced on us by COVID and some of the changes in people's lives that had moved different places, and at the same time there were some other newer presses that have come in and newer series with them. We felt like the community is strong.
Right.
And
Do you ever think you guys will get together and do like maybe an
yeah,
annual
yeah.
thing?
We're not completely dead. We said that the publishing schedule, like we were doing, it is over in our series, but at least we're going to do some special events.
Okay,
But we're taking and right now Jane Ormerod moved up with her husband to Hudson, New York,
Right.
which is a very hip community up there, and a lot of stuff happening up there.
Right.
And she co-curates a monthly series up there in Hudson.
Right.
That
I think I've seen people
that
post about that.
carries on the name, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to feature and promote my chapbook up there. So if you're in the Hudson area on the 2nd of October, which is a Thursday from 7 to 8:30 at the Park Theater in Hudson, New York, I'll be featuring there with the fabulous Jane LaCroix.
Oh, perfect. I just saw. I mentioned before that I saw
Yes.
Jane at the
Yes.
Italian American Writers
I
Association.
know, and she's a force of nature,
Which is what I told her the next day.
right? And so
She really is. She just lights up a room.
yes.
Even her talking about the poem is worth listening to.
And she's someone that she's a singer, and so she brings
musicality
in.
Yeah, just like you.
And I love sharing the stage with her. So that's going on. I anticipate that we'll be doing things again, but we sort of. After all that, we sort of took a break and took a breath and are recalibrating.
Right.
And it also offered me the chance to go back, say, when we stopped doing the series and everything, it gave me the chance. I had a second collection that I was sending around and was not getting a bite on. And so I went back and looked at it and realized that it was kind of too all over the place. That's my, like I want to go in this direction and that direction. And I felt like maybe this is, and so I called the poems that are in this chapbook, I kind of culled out of it, looking for, kind of like a tone. And I think it has to do with what you mentioned before about the rhythms and things. And, most of them are written around the same time. And so was able to get this chapbook up. So
Right.
I think that I might cull another one out of all those.
So how
poems.
can the people that are tuned into us find this book? You have other books online. How can people find what you're up to?
Okay.
Give a little plug for yourself.
Okay, so I will say that I do have a full collection that came out about 10 years ago from our friends at Three Rooms Press.
Okay.
And you can still order it through threeroomspress.com. If you know me and you want to get a signed one, you could let me know that, because I have copies. And I have an earlier chapbook, which is called Inspirative, which is a set of poems about how art inspires us, or artists inspire us in different ways, that came from Moonstone Arts Press out of Philadelphia. And they have a website. You could order it, and I also have copies for people that know how to contact me. And the 2025 chapbook called The Graveyard of Memory, comes from Bottlecap Press. And I will tell you that Bottlecap Press is a small press. It's very ambitious. They put out a lot of books, and they make them to order. And I'm just saying that because if you order it, it won't come to you immediately, because they don't have a stock. They make them to order. But I like the cover that they made and
It's
everything,
great.
and
It's a great
what
chapbook.
they did. I love it very much, and I also have copies. Same deal there. And for The Graveyard of Memory, baby.
So we're pretty much at the end of the show. I'm gonna, say goodbye to you. And then we're gonna play the song "Pixie Dust" by Hydrogen Junkbox. Do you want to just give the
Yes.
a
So
little, talk about that, and then we'll
Okay, just
say goodbye
quickly.
and then play the song.
one of my dearest friends and one of the best writers around is Amy Herman. And Amy started experimenting with music and poetry performance a number of years ago, and got me involved in it. And suddenly we started writing songs together. We started banging on cookie tins to keep the beat, and playing learning ukulele from scratch. And we brought in Eric Alter, who played the bass ukulele for us, and we'd play all these crazy instruments and try out. It's a really joyous experience for us, and fun. And those independent movie makers I was talking to before, I think that some of this music would be great on a soundtrack.
There we go.
Check it out. Most of the streaming services have this for you, and I
Well,
also.
I'm going to be playing it through Spotify.
All right. And
Sounds like we have some opera or something in the background. Did you hear that? I don't-
it's not. It's not.
Is this
me.
from outside?
I don't know.
Or
I'm
maybe
not doing it.
Yeah.
And Pixie Dust was inspired by a poem that I wrote when I was listening to the Pixies to Doolittle
All
by
right.
the Pixies.
That's a great
for
album.
about a week straight, and so.
I have a feeling you and I could sit down and talk about music for a long time. Anyway, you've been listening to Storytelling on Orchard Street. I'm your host, Pete Salamita. We've been listening to the very talented and interesting David Lawton, and we've been talking mostly about his experiences in life and his book, The Graveyard of Memory, which is available on Bottlecap Press. And now, thanks, David. I really enjoyed our talk. And,
I enjoyed it too, Pete.
Yeah, and now we're going to listen to a little bit of Pixie Dust. Goodbye, everybody.
Our feet transmission from a planetary object, high pitched, squealing like children's show clown. Drove my car all along the parkway. Lost myself so I could be found. What's that floating in the water? Every Chevy is a slave. If you have another problem, sail upon this way. We know what we want and want what we know. Guesses make the wanting think it's okay. Let's go. it's flowing just like a mermaid. A chilly look and to slice your eye. Tit-tat it up with a friendly warning. Lower yourself if you hope to rise. Broke in the zoo to free the cages, track pixie dust through monkey chow. Took 3 days to celebrate Cinco de Mayo. Told the choir rehearsal they were much too loud. They say men are apes, so if God made man, chances are the missing link sits at his right hand. His right hand. His right hand. His right
Fuck yeah, print that shit.
All right, I cut it. I forgot that thumbs up.